Okay, this video is about the deliberately developmental organization. Remember, in a previous module, we looked at the marshmallow game, this contest where groups of kids and business school students and CEOs were given the same task. Use a marshmallow and a bunch of dried spaghetti, build the tallest structure you can. You remember, surprisingly, the kids did better than everybody else. And it wasn't because they had any kind of special marshmallow related knowledge. It was all the things they weren't doing. They weren't wasting time managing their status with one another. Now, Keegan and Leahy pick up on this idea with their argument that most people in their workplace do two jobs, not one. What does that mean? Well, in an ordinary organization, they say, most people are doing a second job no one's paying them for. In businesses large and small, most people are spending time and energy covering up their weaknesses, managing other people's impressions of them, showing themselves to their best advantage, playing politics, hiding their inadequacies, hiding their uncertainties, hiding their limitations, hiding. Does this sound familiar? And this has real costs for the businesses where this occurs. Those businesses are slower to detect errors. Those businesses are slower to promote people because delegation is less effective. So people don't learn the skills they need as fast, and they don't get to the next level as quickly. Employees are less engaged. There's more downtime. There's more turnover, and there's less time spent on the truly emerging strategic problems that the business needs to be focused on. The prevailing stance of most people at work, say Keegan and Leahy, is to act so as to preserve or enhance their personal standing, covering up possible weaknesses, and promote our greatest assets. The ordinary organization conspires with that part of its employees' psyches that believes the place for imperfection and vulnerability and shame and unworthiness is somewhere far away from work. Organizations and management science talk about continuous improvement, but it's one thing to be relentless about continuing improving the processes by which work gets done. It's quite another to be relentless about continuously improving the people who do the work. Experts on organizational culture, organizational behavior, or change management often address this subject with a sophisticated sense of how systems impact individual behavior, but with a naive sense of how powerful a factor is the level of mental complexity with which the individual views the culture. So remember the three levels of mental complexity. The socialized mind, where people are learning to play their role better. The self-authoring mind, where people are learning how the whole system fits together and are learning how to create and deliver their own agenda within that system. And the self-transforming mind, where people see beyond the current system that they're in to understand what other kinds of systems are possible, and therefore what could be redesigned in the system that they're in. We remember that most people who get to adulthood reach that level of the socialized mind, but less than half make it to the self-authoring mind. Again, this is based on Keegan's empirical studies. And a very small number make it to that third step of the self-transforming mind. And unfortunately, HR is not necessarily helping the problem. Executive coaching, high potential leader programs, corporate universities, offsites, and leadership development initiatives tend to share the same design flaws, say Keegan and Leahy. Conventional HR approaches are punctuated rather than continuous. They're looked at as something extra outside the flow of normal flow of work. They target only a few high potential employees, like a minority, not the whole organization. And they focus on cultivating the individual rather than helping the organization learn and develop as a whole. So what if? Imagine making the organization itself, and not separate extra benefits, the incubator of capability. Imagining hardwiring development into your bottom line so that, along with asking whether your culture is fostering profitability and product quality, you ask, demand that your culture be a continuous force on behalf of people overcoming their limitations and improving their mastery of increasingly challenging work. Imagine finding yourself in a trustworthy environment, one that tolerates, even prefers, making your weaknesses public so that your colleagues can support you in the process of overcoming them. Imagine recapturing the full-time energies of your employees, now joined to the mission of the enterprise. So this might sound a little idealistic, so let's give a concrete example. This is a company called NextJump, which is an e-commerce business specializing in HR products for large companies, Google, Tesla, Starbucks. NextJump was founded in 1994 and has survived multiple downturns in the tech sector. Has around 200 employees, around which 75% are engineers, with offices in Boston, San Francisco, and London. Inc. magazine called NextJump the most successful company you've never heard of. It's B2B, selling HR platforms and products to large organizations. So its challenge was turnover. In the early 2000s, they were facing a chronic shortage of engineering talent in the tech sector in general, and NextJump suffered from this. And they had a culture problem. They had hired top engineers who turned out, in the words of their CEO, Charlie Kim, to be brilliant jerks, meaning not very pleasant people, but very intelligent. The industry average turnover is around 40% yearly among engineers because software engineers are in such demand. In 2010 and 2011, NextJump was right there in the average. Around 40% of their engineers left every year. So Charlie Kim said to his co-CEO, "I don't want us to run the company alone. The only way this will be possible is to have everyone else own everything. We need to create more leaders." So they created a series of rituals and learning processes, and here are some of them. So first is that every new cohort coming into the company would undertake a 3-week personal leadership boot camp. And the goal at this boot camp is not just to learn about the company and to meet each other and form relationships, but each person was expected to identify their backhand. So a backhand in tennis is the revers. It's considered to be the harder and usually weaker shot. So a backhand in this terminology is something that you need to do but you're less good at. So for example, being overly confident or overly shy. And the goal was that everybody at NextJump would know everyone else's backhand. Rather than having everyone's weak point be something that's secret or shameful, here everyone knows what everyone else is trying to work on, right? Rather than calling it a flaw, calling it a backhand turns a potential source of embarrassment into something people are trying to make progress on. So they call this working on your backhand. Is conscious practices about the thing that people have identified that they're trying to work on. So if you talk too much in meetings, you could work on that backhand by waiting 45 minutes into the meeting to make your first comment. Or reverse, if you're too shy, you might challenge yourself to speak within the first 15 minutes. These would be examples of how an employee of NextJump would consciously work on their backhand. So at this boot camp, participants are given daily targets for customer engagement, asked to take risks, and practice their backhand. All employees also create what's called a +1 project, which are experiments to improve the customer service process. They get consistent, regular feedback from managers and peers during the boot camp. At the end of 3 weeks, they make a presentation of their +1 project to the senior leadership committee. If they are voted a graduate, they receive a team jacket with a name. If not voted a graduate, they can redo the process, or if they decide they're not a good fit, they can take a one-time payment of $5,000 and leave the company. Another ritual, NextJumpers meet every morning with a talking partner to get feedback at a breakfast that's provided by the company. This time with a talking partner can be used to vent, to unload negative energy, get toxins out, and then turn to the future to help each other see ways in which they can develop. Each employee has a practice plan focused on specific situations where they can actively practice their backhand, meaning actively practice getting better at this thing that they know they have to improve. And how do they remind themselves of this? Well, you actually write, if you're an employee of NextJump, you write on a card that you keep in your pocket, what they call a wallet card, carte portefeuille, for the ways that you're supposed to practice your backhand. You decide this for yourself, right? You write this down for yourself and use this as a reminder. And so, look on the left here, you might someone who is struggling with being too arrogant or too overconfident. You would have these two boxes here. One, better me. So these are things that you can do, that you yourself can control to help your own development, being more vulnerable, being more disciplined, being less aggressive. And then another box, which is better you, which is the things you can do to make it easier for others to develop, like take more advice or nurture more. In the case of people overconfident. But if you needed to gain confidence, your better me might be speaking up more, being more aggressive, and your better you might be helping other people by giving them more advice. So it's in this way you see how people with different backhands can complement each other, and the natural diversity of the organization works as a strength for helping the organization collectively develop itself. A third ritual: every week for 1 hour, 2 pairs of talking partners plus one more experienced colleague meet for something called a situational workshop. So this is kind of like a scenario, mise en situation, or a use case. Each participant describes one challenge they faced that week, and then they just said what they did to overcome it. And then the goal is to discuss, okay, well, what are you learning about yourself in this process? So the focus is not just, are you making progress on your backhand? It's, are you analyzing yourself in a helpful way? So the focus is on training your judgment rather than training your technical skills. And so the group helps each person see other options they might not have seen at the time. Each recipient of coaching is expected eventually to coach 4 others. And this way, initially the students, the ones who are getting coached, become the coaches for others at NextJump. And this has been so successful that most meetings of manager, junior feedback have now been replaced by these situational workshops at NextJump. So you can see how this has become part of the internal culture of the company. All strategic initiatives at NextJump are led by a team using what they call the follower-leader organization model. So every transversal project, innovation project, they have the second most senior person is the captain. The most senior person becomes the coach, helping the captain succeed. So rather than having the most senior person pilot everything, the most senior person puts themselves in the position of backup, in the position of coach, to the second most senior person, who is the coordinator. And then the captain has a right hand and a left hand. A right hand is a more junior person who is actively preparing to play the role of the captain in the future. And the left hand, who is a junior person who actively assists the execution and is next in line to succeed the right hand. So this way, everybody sees support from below and above, and they can see how they might progress into another role in creating this learning system. Finally, every month, NextJump holds a special internal conference called 10X Factor, based on the X Factor TV show. Each time, 10 NextJumpers give a short presentation of their contributions to the company. Everyone rates the presentations from 1 to 4 on a mobile app, so it's crowdsourced. A panel of judges, including co-CEOs, give live feedbacks, like you should have focused less on what you did and more on how you did it, would be a typical kind of feedback. Focus on the process. People are celebrated at NextJump in these 10X Factor shows, not for their literal results, but rather for the insights that they gained from it into their learning process, how they worked through their own limitations. As part of their work, NextJumpers lead and participate in dozens of give-back initiatives for community associations. For example, Code for a Cause, helping associations with their IT needs. And so why is this important? Because NextJump wants its employees to get more opportunities to practice being leaders in settings with more room to experiment and fail, with less risk to business performance. They want their employees to develop. And so these are all a series of rituals and practices to accelerate and augment the development of their employees' skills. to this point, they've even replaced the normal salary review process with a new process in which contributions to business revenue are given 50% weight, and contributions to the culture of the company, meaning participating in these learning initiatives, are fully half of the salary review. What are the results? Well, since Charlie Kim and his team implemented these processes, the tech industry has basically remains at a 40% turnover average. NextJump has lowered their turnover to 5 to 10%. So it shows that if you can help people develop, it's possible that you can keep them for longer, and all of the costs associated with turnover can be reduced. In the same time, NextJump's revenue growth has increased from 30% annually to 100% annually. Keegan and Leahy call NextJump an example of the deliberately developmental organization, a company that values developing people's capacities so strongly that it includes each member of the team in an ongoing developmental journey that unfolds during every working day. A DDO intersects continuously with its members' developmental position, whatever that position is, by offering invitations for them to grow beyond the limits of their current mindsets if they are ready for the move. So if they're a socialized mind, you want to give people the chance to grow to self-authoring. If they're self-authoring, grow towards self-transforming. Inside a DDO are three main elements, according to Keegan and Leahy: edge, home, and groove. In our next video, we'll tell you about each one.